Усім незламним потужного ранку.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Well,
So today we'll talk about how Zelensky plans to establish peace. According to him, he is opening a window of opportunity for peace. And for this purpose, he is appealing to the US to increase the supply of missiles. How this correlates with peace is apparently known only to Zelensky himself.
a little. Well,
And at the same time, the manhunters continue to run wild and continue snatching hundreds of thousands of citizens into vans. That's no exaggeration per year.
digression. Well,
Some people successfully avoid it. Let's see how all this happens. Because some citizens still manage to avoid these manhunters. Here our citizens find those very manhunters and rescue the citizens who were snatched into vans who are about to be sent straight to the front. And here, good Lord, even an elderly man with a cane, honor and praise to him, helps with this. Well, that's right, yes, and these manhunters go beyond the line of resistance, so to speak. For what purpose? To take part in the resistance on the real front? No, of course not. It's to catch new civilians, yesterday's bakers, bus drivers, steel workers, and send them to the front for a small fee, or maybe not such a small one. To watch the whole video, YouTube doesn't allow it. It doesn't recommend showing profanity or violent actions, and there are a lot of them in this video. I recommend subscribing to my Telegram channel. Right here or here, it's better to show, as I was advised, a QR code. Just point your smartphone or tablet camera at it and you'll get where you need to go. Or, if you're watching me from a mobile device, just click the link right here in the video description and you'll also get where you need to go. Actually, there are a lot of statistics here, and about how suddenly, for example, some anti-corruption agencies in Ukraine arrest a new head of the Territorial Recruitment Center, or even some junior assistant or a senior janitor with a villa somewhere on a lake in Europe. It's surprising, but it's a fact. And right away, let's say a tearful article appears in one of the patriotic media outlets. And it says here that in the Kharkiv region, a draft center team was knocked down and tear gas was used. Can you imagine? They didn't break an arm, didn't break a leg, didn't kill anyone like the draft center usually does, but they used tear gas. Oh, what a horror. The suspects face up to 7 years in prison for this. But that's better than death at the front, of course. Still, let's see what's going on here. In the Kharkiv region, the police reported that 4 men are suspected of attacking servicemen from the Territorial Recruitment and Social Support Center and committing acts of hooliganism. This was reported by the Kharkiv region police. On May 26, which was 2 or 3 days ago, in the village of Saknovshchina, a notification team. This is so you understand. It's when an innocent citizen is caught on the street, beaten, shoved into a van and sent straight to the front. This is called notification. So, this very notification group from one of the district recruitment and social support centers arrived in the settlement to carry out their official duties upon arrival. Between the manhunters, replace the word servicemen with manhunters, everything happens right away, you see. And a dispute developed with local residents. The men started making threats, can you imagine, after which they attacked the representatives of the recruitment and social support center, causing them bodily harm. Oh my God, what a twist, we might exclaim. It has been preliminarily established that one of the suspects used a metal telescopic baton. He damaged a service vehicle and struck the victims, those very same manhunters. And during the conflict, the offenders used tear gas. This tear gas, an irritant substance, is used by those very same draft officers on everyone around. And against pensioners and against women, including pregnant women. More than one video shows this, and for no reason at all. Well, for them it's just an ordinary liquid, but it was used against them. And then suddenly a scathing article like this appears. And it says that 4 men who resisted these very same manhunters and didn't want to die at the front have been charged. One is 36, another is 29, the third is 29, and nothing is said about the 4th. Well, that's how it is. By the way, the draft officers have been calling themselves servicemen for a while now, though honestly I don't understand why, so what now? Now let's talk about peace negotiations. Who initiates peace negotiations? Naturally, Zelensky. And here he tells us about a window of opportunity and addresses the TCC. Actually, sorry, That was a Freudian slip to the US. On the left, a guy is putting on a detached, serious face and looking somewhere down. Why? It's absolutely impossible to understand. But Zelensky is confidently looking forward. Zelensky is confident, Zelensky is sure that it's possible to find a diplomatic path right now, but a license to produce Patriot missiles is also needed. So, a diplomatic way, Patriot missiles, a nuclear bomb, and all this shows the peaceful path that Zelensky has chosen. Such a peaceful clearing in the ashes of nuclear war. Just wonderful. And in the tense conditions of American anti-ballistic missile production, says Zelensky, they can't supply everyone. Then, to be honest, it's not clear. Why is he appealing to the US if they can't sustain that production? Well, he gave an interview to Face the Nation in which he directly stated that before the winter of 2026 there is an opportunity to start peace negotiations with Russia. Let me remind you, they were already happening in 2022. But the greatest diplomat of Israel of our time, Boris Johnson, came and convinced everyone not to go to these negotiations. As a result, well, it's been a lot already. This whole mess has been going on for a month now, I would say, because there's no other way to call it. Well, but he also says that a lot in the negotiation process depends on the sanctions pressure from the US and Europe, and it's necessary to solve the problems related to defense. For example, as this Nagem who started the Maidan said, what was it called there? The Revolution of Dignity. And he supplied the students with tea and cookies there. Then suddenly this very Mustafa Nayem, a native of Afghanistan, became a true Ukrainian. He became the main person in charge of energy, or rather the protection of energy, and all these years he has been protecting Ukraine's energy sector. Then suddenly the energy sector started pleading poverty to us, just like Ukraine's finances. And Mustafa Nayem took on some other position pretending that he had nothing to do with it, and honestly that's pretty much how fools grumbled and acted. That is, somewhere along the line you had an effective, targeted impact on what you were supposed to influence. You got an effective tool for carrying out what you proposed. You effectively sent all of this, probably offshore, like for example Prytula is already launching his second or third offshore satellite there, and you already have a different position. One moment you're the Minister of Defense, then you're some kind of NSDC secretary, then someone else. Everything in general, in this country, in the Danish kingdom, figuratively speaking, everything is just wonderful. So here we are. What does Zelensky say about peace talks? Zelensky says that since December of 2025, Russia has started to lose the initiative on the battlefield, and he informed the Allies about this. Those, of course, are naive boys sitting there. This is that coalition of powerful informal figures, the coalition, as they call it, of the desirous ones. The coalition of the willing. So the coalition of the willing is sitting there, and they're all clueless. France doesn't have its own intelligence service. The United Kingdom doesn't have its own intelligence service, which is called MI5. That's all nonsense. And there's also some other country that's involved in all of this. It also doesn't have its own intelligence service. Everyone basically forgot, Monsieur Macron. And Germany doesn't have an intelligence service either, where Protagonos Merz holds his position. I don't know if it's by mistake or on purpose, but he does. But in the United Kingdom, Starmer is also such a wonderful leader. So all these leaders can't understand what's going on. Suddenly it turns out that Russia has no initiative. And Zelensky reports that in January of 26, I told our American partners, I believe there is a window for negotiations since every month Russia will lose more and more of its troops. I like this part. I said, there's a joke about beer, but I won't tell it. I hope you know it. Now Zelensky says that Russia can't occupy more territory in a month than we liberate. There is actually some truth to this, since I have already commented on it more than once. Every month, a few square kilometers are captured. Basically, 3 small villages near Blizdikanka are taken over. Ukraine liberates 4 small villages near Dekanka, and it's kind of like 1 step forward, 2 steps back, or 2 steps forward, 1 step back. In short, no one has shown any initiative for a long time. Zelensky emphasizes that a diplomatic solution needs to be found, to sit down and talk before the next winter begins. But this depends on internal pressure on Putin from his own society, as well as the joint actions of the US and Europe towards Russia. According to him, Europe could be represented at the negotiations by the UK, France, and Germany, that is, the most powerful leaders as of today. And all of this, well, can't even be compared to Krylov's fable, the swan, the pike, and the crawfish. Not to Aesop's, not to Krylov's, not to any other. So we have these three, the swan, the pike, and the crawfish. And all of them are looking for where the crawfish has an effective government. Well, let's put it this way. There's also such a fable. They spent the whole day looking for where the crab has it. Here is the decision-making center. But they never found it. In short, all these crawfish are searching and trying to find, again, sorry for the tautology, peace. Peace on this earth. Peace in particular in this boiling cauldron of aggression and militarism which has been simmering for years now. Zelensky says the following: "We have reliable partners from the countries of Northern Europe. Turkey has always wanted to be a mediator. Turkey is an excellent partner. Who, after all, will represent Europe should be decided by Ukraine and Europe. But it is equally important that Russia is ready for a dialogue about Europe's presence. That is, if before there were Russia, Ukraine, and the USA, I've mentioned this before, now they also want to squeeze in Europe, even though it doesn't really fit. Europe, for its part, again, is not represented by a single state. It's a kind of conglomerate that now literally looks like Borrell's withering Garden of Eden. And this conglomerate includes some particularly active members who want to express their opinion one last time. This opinion is being expressed very decisively one last time. Now imagine if, in addition to the three negotiators, a fourth one joins, consisting, roughly speaking, of about 10 more powerful leaders who want to express their opinions. What would the negotiation process turn into then? At the same time, today Zelensky has already stated that he wants not just individual countries or the diplomatic corps of these countries to participate, but powerful leaders. In other words, roughly speaking, to go to Putin or for Putin to come to him and start talking. Again, I used to say that there's not much point in this because before just talking for the sake of talking, there isn't really much time for this. Heads of state really don't have much time. The diplomatic corps on one side needs to come to an agreement with the diplomatic corps on the other side. I could say I've got a sore tongue from talking about this so much. I'm telling you this for the umpteenth time, sorry, but apparently some representatives of KVN or some other organizations just don't get it. The leaders of the states only meet once an agreement has already been reached and the documents on it have been published. There is already a final agreement and the leaders of the states meet just to sign it. It's all purely formal. Because a huge amount of work has been done before that, it's like the bottom of an iceberg that's underwater and the leaders are just at the very tip. If you remember this meme, give it a like. If you don't remember, give it a like anyway and ask in the comments what it's about. I'll tell you what it's all about. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel because it's extremely important for the channel. More and more people will be able to learn about important and relevant information for themselves. So, what's next for us? There's also a military agreement with the US in our diplomatic affairs. Zelensky noted that Ukraine would like to make its first drone deal with the United States. It's absolutely impossible to translate this, but the United States hasn't responded to Zelensky's urgent letter for 3 days now. For 3 days there's been no response at all, but Zelensky keeps talking about the drone deal. We agreed to let them use, test for training, and deploy our systems in the air, on land, and at sea the way they wanted. But we still don't have a bilateral drone deal, a big framework document. Let me remind you, a framework document is just a general format, the concept that the negotiating parties agreed upon. And if there isn't even a framework format, it means nothing has been agreed upon. So it's like I spoke and chatted in Ukrainian, put in effort and even cried, but achieved absolutely nothing. On one hand, we have a resource deal for rare earth metals and other minerals from Ukrainian land, which was made with Trump. Trump and his associates now have this deal, which, as far as I remember, provides for 50%. These very minerals for the US, Ukrainian minerals, of course, what Ukraine has. Подскажите? Let the author of this channel know in the comments. Honestly, I don't understand. By the way, for those in the comments asking what the author's name is, the author of this channel, my name is Maxim. I used to introduce myself every time. Later, I was told not to introduce myself, everyone knows you, and suddenly there are messages from people who don't know. Anyway, my name is Maxim, nice to meet you. And I'm glad that you're watching this channel and listening to your humble servant. Let's move on. Here, Zelensky thinks that this drone tails, which in English is like good morning, as it's supposed to be said, just with a different pronunciation, is the strongest in the world. Because American companies have advanced technologies and, well, someone else might have something too, but still, and they don't have them. Ukraine, however, has extensive battlefield experience. What is this? What is it about? Why? Honestly, I don't understand. There are a lot of words here, but no action. Zelensky says that we need to take the necessary steps and do it as quickly as possible. For that, we need the president to say yes. What? Why? Where? Let's move on to the next one. Ukraine and Denmark. Here, Zelensky kept hammering and finally managed to make a little hole in the wall of cooperation. Europe's reluctance to cooperate with Ukraine. Ukraine and Denmark are telling us they will expand their defense cooperation. Now we have both missiles and an anti-ballistic project. In this picture, try to find a missile, try to find the anti-ballistic project, and also some guy in glasses. It's absolutely impossible to figure out. And if earlier Denmark seemed to refuse cooperation with Ukraine, now we're being told that Ukraine and Denmark have agreed to expand their defense partnership in several areas at once. We're talking about the purchase of Ukrainian drones and interceptors, localization of production in Denmark, development of air defense, and support for Ukrainian missile programs. Here, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine is telling us about this. Of course, we naturally take absolutely everything the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine says at face value. And we are extremely pleased that Defense Minister Mikhail Fedorov had a conversation with the head of the Danish Defense Department, Troels Lund Poulsen. The man with such a complicated name, surname, and patronymic, whatever all that may be, stated that Denmark could purchase Ukrainian-made drones for the defense forces of Ukraine, including interceptors. That sounds very strange. So it turns out that Denmark is purchasing Ukrainian-made drones for the defense forces of Ukraine. And I don't understand what Denmark has to do with it. It's like if I went to the market to buy meat for my own barbecue, and then wrote in the newspapers that supposedly the author of the channel Europe for Ukrainians, Maxim, went to the market to buy meat for his own needs. Well, that's it, give me money. Where's your money to chip in? I can't even buy barbecue for myself. It's very strange, honestly. I don't understand what's going on. At the same time, the EU wants to freeze the price cap on Russian oil because of Iran. Previously, they wanted to freeze it at the level of $80 or so per barrel. But now the freeze has shifted a bit to a slightly different level. And Europe says, well, we need oil, so you go ahead and sell us your oil. We've imposed sanctions on you, or we will. And sell to the EU because otherwise nothing good will come of it for us. Well, and lastly, probably for today, and the last thing is that Ukraine, remember, stated, Sibiha, honestly, I'm already tired of showing him this powerful leader in a portable, helmet for the head, for the interoral ganglion. And for several months now, according to representatives of Ukraine again, he has been fighting for the rights of Ukrainian citizens who are abroad. That's how they're all fighting, and in yesterday's video I talked about how they're planning to give financial support to Ukrainians. And they're negotiating with the Germans, the Austrians, and others so that Ukrainians are returned, and they're planning to bring back more than 8 million Ukrainians. I don't know how they're gonna do it. Obviously, you can fantasize and build as many castles in the air as you want, but usually they end up falling apart. But here, without any hesitation, they're hammering it into us day after day that we need to return to rebuild Ukraine. For this reason, for that reason, and then I read an article about Ukraine. Ukraine is not ready to take the refugees back. Are you even in your right mind over there? How is that possible? The right hand really doesn't know what the left is doing. I just don't understand. How can this even happen? So you were organizing a Ministry of National Unity for Zelensky's buddy over there, or whatever it was called. Now it's called something else. It's already a different ministry with a different budget. And here Ukraine turns out to be not ready to take back millions of refugees. So what's the point? Why are you even doing this? For what? Why? I just can't understand it. I think you, dear viewers, already understand. So please explain to this clueless author what's actually going on. Oh, So, some member of parliament from Servant of the People, Serhiy Kozyr, says that many people who left see that the government still doesn't have a comprehensive program working. What comprehensive program? I don't understand. But Kozyr, this ace up the sleeve, can really see it. That's probably why he's asking. Namely, this comprehensive master plan, should include housing, jobs and benefits and everything else. What is everything else? Why? For what reason? There are separate initiatives, but they're not integrated or synchronized. So I'm explaining this to Kozyr as well. In order to stitch something together, there have to be some pieces. You can't stitch air together, even with a needle and thread. You need something to stitch. You need intermediate steps and some agreements, so all of this can be brought together. Personally, I haven't heard anything about any programs even starting to work there. Everything is based on exactly what I was talking about. I talked and chatted and even cried out of frustration, and there's absolutely nothing else. And now some small-time lawmaker from Servant of the People is planning to stitch something together to bring someone back to return. Moreover, they already say that way more than 8 million have left the country. Some people are already talking about 18 million. So what were you counting with before? With what you're sitting on? That's not a calculator, guys. That seat is just there to keep you comfortable. If you're sitting on your leather deputy chair, it's not for counting. There are no buttons there. Well, that's how things are. Extremely strange. Today, everything I've read is very strange. What I've heard is also extremely strange. In general, it's surprising, but it's a fact. Yes, continue.
You're a colonel general. Couldn't you have spoken up? Who are you anyway? Leave. We came to see the president, not you. Who are you? What authority do you have? We report to the Supreme Commander and won't leave until he sees us. Yes, we're going.